warm welcome to everyone and Namaste. So we are continuing from the previous episode about relationship lessons from RAMAYAN. If you remember, in the last session we were discussing about Vali and Sugriva. So I'll give you a brief summary and then we'll begin today's talk. So we were discussing how Vali entered the kingdom after many days, and he was tired and weak, but he was very furious. And Vali tried to beat and kick his brother Sugriva, and he wanted to kill him, but just because he was his brother, he left him. And Sugriva literally had to flee for his life. So then we were trying to analyze the story. Then we discussed how from Sugriva's perspective, Sugriva was right. From Vali's perspective, Vali was also right. Then we discussed how both people can be right at the same time. Then we discussed is it psychological or is it logical? Then we understood it is psychological. So then we discussed about how Vali was a great example of judgment without understanding. So we also understood how two best of friends became worst of enemies because of misunderstanding or judgment without understanding. Now we also discussed all of us have a special disease called I am right disease. We become lawyers when we do mistakes, and we become judges when others commit mistakes. Then we discussed sometimes we form our opinions in a fraction of a second and abandon others' opinion throughout the life. So we discussed it is better to admit that I am wrong and actually be right rather than insisting I am right and actually be wrong. It was a very important statement. So we also discussed from scriptures we understand that there are three modes of nature, and how in the mode of ignorance people are attached to sleep and laziness, and in the mode of passion people are interested in wealth, possession and so on, and in the mode of goodness people are attached to their opinions. So then we were discussing about Vali and Sugriva. These two brothers were not an ordinary people. Vali was not a demon. He was a great devotee and expansion of Indra. Sugriva is an expansion of Surya. So then we discussed about some examples, how if somebody is oversleeping, we immediately judge the person saying he is lazy and he is a Kumbhakaran, but when I oversleep, I say I was tired. When somebody overeats, we say he is a glutton, and when I overeat, I say I was hungry. So these are all how we make judgment by looking at others. It is the same situation, we give ourselves benefit of doubt and we don't give benefit of doubt to others, but we quickly make judgment, we judge. And we discussed how it takes courage to stand up and speak when others make mistake, and it also takes courage to sit down and listen when we make mistakes. So then we discussed it requires lot of maturity and internal strength to understand that I may be wrong. I also tend to commit mistake. So till here we had discussed in the last episode, and today we will begin the discussion with a beautiful story about mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. So this is a common story we hear, that there is always a fight between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. One time there was a lady who got married and she shifted herself to the husband's place, and in the husband's place there were husband, mother-in-law and father-in-law. And slowly as the day passed by, from the first day itself there was always a misunderstanding between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Mother-in-law was possessive about her son, daughter-in-law was possessive about her husband. So this went on and on and on. Days passed by, months passed by. They both started fighting against each other. They started, first it was on the mental platform, then it was on the verbal platform. That both of them they were criticizing each other, they were fighting with each other, and the entire family was in a mess. And the torture became so high that one day daughter-in-law decided to kill the mother-in-law. And she was confused. She didn't know what to do. But only conclusion she could arrive at was, only if my mother-in-law dies, I can be happy. So with this conclusion, she finally decides, before killing her, at least she wanted some ideas, because killing or murdering other person is not an easy task. So she decides to take advice from her uncle, who was a man of wisdom and he was also a doctor. So this daughter-in-law goes and meets her uncle, who was a doctor and was a nice person, and she narrates her story and explains how she is suffering so much, and she tells her idea, her plan, that she wants to kill her mother-in-law. The uncle, the doctor, he hears everything and he says, don't worry, I will help you. And daughter-in-law was very happy. She says, uncle, please tell me how can I kill my mother-in-law so that I can be happy in the family, I can be happy with my husband. So the uncle or doctor says, you do one thing, if you go and directly kill her, everyone in the world will easily come to know that you are the culprit, you are the murderer. So you will go to jail. So that is not a good idea. And she says, yes, that is right. So what should I do? Then uncle says, my dear daughter, my dear girl, please take a bottle of poison. This is a bottle of poison. Take this poison and every day mix 1 spoon in a coffee and offer it to your mother-in-law. And every day you do it. After 6 months, slowly and steadily, the poison will go inside mother-in-law and works. And after 6 months, she will be no more. And daughter-in-law says, okay, another 6 months I have to tolerate, but after 6 months she will die and nobody will come to know that I have killed her. That's a good idea. So I will tolerate for 6 months and I will do it. Uncle says, but one condition. And daughter-in-law says, I am ready to do anything. Please tell me. So then uncle says, while doing this, while poisoning your mother-in-law every day with the coffee, make sure that you serve her very nicely. Smile at her. Even if she speaks something ill against you, even if she scolds you, chastises you, you don't retaliate. You don't react. You just very humbly say, okay mother-in-law, I'll serve you. I'm always there to serve you. So just become very humble. As the saying goes, fake it until you make it. So even if it is fake, no problem. Just act as if you love her. Act as if you want to serve her. So just do this for 6 months. After that, you will achieve your goal. And she says, no problem. 6 months acting, right? I will do it. 6 months of drama. So she takes that poison, the bottle of poison powder, and she very safely keeps it in her bedroom. And every day she starts adding 1 spoon of that poison in the coffee, and she goes and serves her mother-in-law. And mother-in-law is looking at her. She always fights against me. Now she wants to serve me. That's interesting. And she also takes the service, and she again scolds her, chastises her. But now daughter-in-law is very clear that she doesn't want to retaliate. She doesn't want to react to her mother-in-law. And slowly and steadily she is serving, faking, even though it is faking, but still she is serving. A month passed by, 2 months passed by, 3 months passed by, 4 months passed by, and mother-in-law's heart gets transformed. Mother-in-law starts thinking, Arey, my daughter-in-law is so good. She is serving me so nicely. I think it is me who is not so good person. Even though I am so bad, even though I am fighting against her, still she is serving me. My daughter-in-law is so nice. And from 4th month onwards, mother-in-law starts loving the daughter-in-law. She starts taking care of her. She smiles at her. Mother-in-law is also ready to serve her. And by the time 6 months pass by, daughter-in-law's heart also gets transformed. Now daughter-in-law is thinking, my mother-in-law is so good. Actually, it was me who was feeling bad about her. But my mother-in-law is so good. She also smiles at me. She talks to me so nicely. She also wants to serve me. So now mother-in-law's heart is transformed. Daughter-in-law's heart is also transformed. Now both of them, who are worst of enemies, they have become best of friends. And after 6 months, daughter-in-law realizes, now any time mother-in-law is going to die. Arey, what a mistake I have done. And she runs back to uncle, doctor uncle, and she says, uncle, I am in problem, please help me. Uncle said, you were in problem before, again you are in problem, you please wait. It takes time for the poison to work. And she says, uncle, I am in problem, please help me, please help me. Uncle says, come on, what happened? And daughter-in-law explains, uncle, actually speaking, my mother-in-law is so nice, she's so good, she's so cool. Actually, it was me who was not a good person. I always saw bad in her, and now she is looking only good about me. So what should I do? Uncle asks. And the daughter-in-law says, uncle, please do something. Please give me some anti-poison, because I don't want my mother-in-law to die. I want my mother-in-law in my life. I want to serve her. She is a very good friend of me now. And doctor uncle starts smiling at her. And she's bewildered. Uncle, I am crying. I don't want my mother-in-law to die. And you are smiling. Please give me some anti-poison, or give me some medicine where it can not, this poison should not work in the body of my mother-in-law. And the daughter uncle says, my dear child, you know what? I never gave you poison. She was struck with wonder. And the doctor uncle says, the poison was not in the powder, the poison was in your mind. So what I gave the powder, it is not a poison, it is energy drink. So the poison was in your mind, and you were always thinking negative about your mother-in-law. So I just removed the poison in your mind, and now you both will be very happy, and you don't have to kill her. You can always continue to serve her. So this is a beautiful story, but gives a very pertinent and important message. And what is that message? That judgment without understanding always fails. Whenever we judge the other person without understanding, then what happens? We fail in that relationship. So here in the story of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, both of them, they became very good because both of them started looking at each other's positive points. So beautiful story with a great message. So that is why it is said, fool always think I am always right, but wise people listen to advice. Very important. Whenever we are in confusion in our life, whenever we don't have sufficient clarity, better to go to a person who is matured, who has some wisdom, and take guidance from him, rather than making a wrong decision and suffering throughout the life. That's why it is said, wise people listen to advice.